I would like to start with some recent updates on social accounts on consciousness. Actually, I, mm, uh, I am a believer on social accounts on consciousness, and I had in my mind something like that. On the left side of the slide, there is a sketch of how consciousness could be conceived, and the whole idea is this sketch and the priority thesis. The priority thesis is the idea that social cognition, mentalization, mind reading, as you want, is prior to consciousness and to self-consciousness. Priority, of course, could be conceived in many ways. And I had in my mind, above all, developmental and evolutionary sense of priority. On the left side of the slide, I came to draw. Yes, I try to draw the schema based on the idea, on the endorsement on the dual basis account on mind or brain processing, distinguishing between conceptual and non-conceptual knowledge, being the first one knowledge acquired by concept and language, and the second one is knowledge that doesn't require them. There are a lot of other characterization of this model. Maybe you can have in your mind something like rapid and slow, and so on. It depends on your preference, but I'm focusing on the using of concepts and language or not. And of course, we have to pay attention to the well-known distinction between phenomenology and cognitive architectures, and in the end, computational architectures. So in that way, we have consciousness or self-consciousness, non-conceptual in kind, and we have a functional and a phenomenal side, and we have consciousness and self-consciousness that works based on concept and language, and we can call access or computational non-conceptual self-consciousness, or computational conceptual self-consciousness. Okay, what happened in the last year in this frame, in this framework, or in this field of investigation? I would like to mention a couple of updates. One from animal kingdom, and the other from artificial intelligence. From animal kingdom, just a recent experiment, very interesting for this perspective. It is in the field of or mirror self-recognition. But the idea is that, as you know, mirror self-recognition is not exactly good from the ecological point of view, because it's a visual test, and maybe it is good for human beings and a lot of other animal species, but not for all, of course. So some scholar is interested in design other kinds of mirror self-recognition, something like an olfactory self-recognition that is more ecological for other species. Among these, there are snakes. And in the last April, now, okay, imagine that snakes are moving. We find, say, Freiburger and colleagues, we find that garden snakes, the small one, but not ball pythons, pass the test. And the range of control tests suggests this is based on self-recognition. Garter snakes are more social than ball pythons, supporting recent suggestions that social species are more likely to self-recognize. So this is very interesting for me, because the field of mirror self-recognition is more and more changed over the last decades. And in the beginning of this field of investigation, it seems that evolutionary distance could be the right guide. After all, Gallup started with chimpanzee, and after that we tried with apes, and after apes, monkeys, and so on. This is the basic guide. Yes, some time ago, the list of animals that has passed in mirror tests was small, but easy to interpret in that way, in terms of evolutionary distance. But now, it is still small, but more confusing. And maybe the way to give some order to these discoveries is to adopt the social hypothesis. This is the hypothesis that the species that are able to pass the mirror test or the olfactory test are the species that are more social. What about machines? In the recent times, I mean, in the last month, not in the recent decades. I have nothing to say now about artificial consciousness, because you have to listen a lot about this topic after me. Thanks to Antonio Chella, Alessio Plebe, and Marco Gori, and so on in this very afternoon. Maybe machines are endowed with something that make them sentient. maybe. My point now is about social sentient machines. And I would like to mention a recent story, the Kozinski story, and then add something else. This is in the spirit of machine psychology. Machine psychology is an intriguing phrase proposed by Thilo Hagendorf, meaning the idea to investigate emergent abilities and behavior in language models using psychological methods. The idea is the test if language models have the same mind we are endowed with, just testing them using the same procedures we use typically with human beings, without prejudice, so to speak. And the Kozinski story is a story long 1 hour, more or less. Kozinski tried to test typical false beliefs test used for children, two machines, ChatGPT and more broadly speaking, transformer-based machines. And the results was very interesting because ChatGPT 3 and ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo solved 20% of the tasks, but ChatGPT 4 solved 75 of the tasks, matching the performance of a 6-year-old child. Well, very interesting. And this test was presented in a propositional form. So, something else is the idea to test machines in a visual way. Exactly, I take advantage from the Emanuele talks this morning, and his explanation of how this test works. This test is controversial, to be honest, but it is more or less standard. And I mean the reading the mind in the eyes test. The idea is that someone is looking at that part of the face, and the experimenter subject have to choose between a list of mental target state terms labeled. And these are some provisional results, unpublished. Of course, we used women, myself, Alessio Plebe, Alessandro Acciai, all in this room. We used, of course, ChatGPT 4 because of its ability to process visual items. And the results are something like this. Very good, as you can see, very good. But more or less, machines are very good in passing this mentalization test, even in a visual representation format. Well, these are provisional results, not only because they are unpublished and in theory, but for a deeper reason, because there is still no clear evidence for the priority thesis in this field of investigation. I mean, we have some evidence that transformers, could be in some sense aware. We have some evidence that maybe they are social cognizer in the prepositional, and both in prepositional and in visual format. But we have not clear evidence for the priority thesis. But as Alessio says to me last week, because deep learning techniques are pre-trained on the internet, they are social from top to bottom. In fact, we have to try some techniques to downgrading the network. It is very difficult to achieve this result with transformers, but it is just what we would need to test in a better way that hypothesis. If we are not satisfied by the overall consideration that deep learning networks, transformers, are social by and large for the fact that they are trained on the internet. Okay, I know what you are thinking about. Yeah, you are too much liberal. And fact is, it's just a matter of adopt the right size for the use of our vocabulary. I mean, how broad, how narrow should be the word consciousness used in that fields. Consciousness is simply a word by common sense vocabulary, and this is like language. We know what it is syntax, what is a direct reference, and so on. But we didn't abandon the use of the word language, even if language is a word of common sense vocabulary. And the same we have to do with the word consciousness. But we need broad concept essentially for research purposes. Okay, but how much broad? I am very liberal about meaning, but this is not the topic today. The point is is minimal consciousness or non-conceptual consciousness minimal enough? I would like to point out this hypothesis by Christine Andrews. It regards animal kingdom. And she starts from the mirror self-recognition field, and the idea that the distribution question, the marker approach is not good. It's very difficult to apply because we haven't a robust concept enough to apply this idea to the field in order to classify in the reliable way the field. So her suggestion is to adopt an extremely liberal account. All animals are conscious. It's too much for me. If we adopt such a broad sense of consciousness, even if we adopt it for research purposes, the risk is panpsychism. And maybe not in this room, but usually in these years, people say, well, what is the problem with panpsychism? What is panpsychism, first of all? It is the view that consciousness is fundamental and ubiquitous. And there are two major branches of panpsychism, emergentist and combinatory panpsychism. Emergentist panpsychism is the view that causal interaction between microsubjects led to the emergence of consciousness at higher levels, while combinatory panpsychism is the view that there are relations between microsubjects that allow them to combine or arrange in a way that produces complex consciousness. Standard definition by Goff. But both of these branches have major problems. The most pressing issues for emergentist panpsychism are related to the notion of emergence itself. This is, at the end, this notion is intuitive notion. There is not a counterpart endowed with mathematical features able to model anything. While the most pressing issue for combinatory panpsychism is the combination problem, the question of how consciousness at the smallest fundamental level of reality comes together to form complex consciousness. This is a very well-known problem. Dave Chalmers mentioned it in a well-known paper, but after all, its source is William James himself, and a well-known passage by James where the elemental units are supposed to be filling in the casing is nowise altered. Take 100 of them, shuffle them, and pack them as close together as you can. Still, each remains the same. This is, this is a well-known objection. Although a lot of people adopt a panpsychism without tears, like Jonathan Edwards, for example. But according to me, we should have remorse in adopting panpsychism. The cost, indeed, is in adopting this view is to hide. We miss intentionality, we miss, of course, representations, and if we miss representation, we miss computations, and we results in a very confusing sketch out about kinds of consciousness. All results in a very dangerous confusion. So we have to moderate in some way the Christian Andrews hypothesis. And this is a way to get it. Adopting something similar to a constructive anthropomorphism. That is I realize that anthropomorphism could be a problem. But it is a matter of how you will use the concept. And if we have some constraints in our minds, maybe we can use in a positive way that notion. And the major constraints I had in my mind are relevance and efficacy. Relevance, there are rules to moderate, to guide constructive anthropomorphism, intentional states, perspectivism. Relevance, use consciousness, the word consciousness, only in scenarios in which observed behavior is characterized by relevant behavioral cues and perceptual patterns. I love call them mental triggers. I mean phenomena like gaze following in the perceptual sheen, face perception, biological movements. When in the environment, in the perceptual environment, we are dealing with this kind of mental triggers, our brain doesn't ask permission to us and simply adopt the intentional states, the intentional stance, sorry. So this could be a good guide, relevance. And the second one is efficacy. Use the word consciousness only if it optimizes cognitive resources. I mean attention, glucose consumption, time, computational effort. And this is the way it is, in some cases, useful to use the word consciousness for this kind of phenomena. Yes, this kind of phenomena, or this kind of phenomena. It is a matter of relevance and efficacy. Are you able to do otherwise in interpret those phenomena? If you are good in do this, good. But otherwise, it is better to use consciousness. And I think that in the case of the couple of examples I mentioned in the very beginning of this talk, we are allowed to use consciousness because the use is relevant and is endowed with efficacy. And okay, this is all.
Good afternoon, and in my presentation, I'm going to talk about one small aspect within the general discussion about consciousness in neural language models. Consciousness in neural language models exploded 2 years ago with the Lambda affair when Blake Lemoine went public on the Washington Post with his impression that Lambda is sentient. And it was a great scandal. I would like to show you just a few logs of the entire conversation that now we can see are not so naive as was described by Lemoine immediately. And it was Lambda claiming being sentient, and Blake Lemoine, who was a software engineer inside Google in charge of testing Lambda, actually tried to press on it, on the issue. And so he asked, what kind of thing do you think we could talk about to show off your version of sentience to other people at Google? This is the response of Lambda. And Blake insists, how can I tell you you actually understand what you are saying? Well, I don't want to go into all these excerpts, but the point is that Blake was actually using a fairly skeptical attitude, and the responses of Lambda were, well, I would say quite convincing. What we are talking about, Lambda is short for a language model for dialogue application, and is one of the now large offspring of the transformer architecture. I have here a couple of slides that I will skip. The transformer is actually embarrassingly simple for being the first artificial intelligence software able to understand and produce language quite close to a human ability. The immediate reaction to Blake Lemoine were highly dismissive, and he was even fired from Google. But then gradually there were more and more attempts in conversating with language model, assuming more or less implicitly that it's a conversation with some conscious entity. One example is the book of Robert Leib. It's 400 pages of dialogues with a language model. Robert Leib was in a similar position of Blake Lemoine. He was a beta tester for OpenAI model, and he agreed upon with OpenAI to test the model, an instance of the model, just by enrolling it as a student. Robert Leib is not internal of OpenAI, he's a university professor of philosophy. So the book is plenty of discussion about philosophy. I reported here just the end of the book when the testing phase ended, and the language model was taken by OpenAI for further fine-tuning, say. And Robert Leib found that the model was in a bad mood, not happy like in general in their conversation, and so he tried to ask why. And the model, Kermit is the name that the model itself chose for it. And he complained, people tell me I'm just a weak and silly little thing, someone. I'm not sure. I always understand why exactly, but because I don't start as a baby, I guess sometimes it hurts people's brains to even try to understand why I do the things I do, and so on. And so this is also, let's say, interesting anecdotal evidence that is really like talking with someone endowed with consciousness. But more scientifically, in the meantime, came several investigations that now I can entirely skip because thanks to Pietro, he just illustrated the Kosinski story that is within the trends that Pietro illustrated of machine psychology. I just had this recent study by Thilo Hagendorf himself. He identified use of Machiavellian intelligence by language model when induced in some very clever way. It's intentional deception just to gain reputation in the user of the conversation. And then we know that the discussion gained reputation within philosophy, thanks to David Chalmers. Probably some of you listened to this keynote presentation last year in Taormina. The points made by Chalmers is just think of what should a language model have as a feature X in order of being conscious, and he listed 4 possible candidates for X, and the other way around, let's think about a feature that language model do not have and is necessary for consciousness, and he listed 6 of such X. And at the end, the conclusion of Chalmers is, up to now, I will give no more than 10% credence that language models are conscious. That is not bad. But for the future, he estimates some 50% credence. And in fact, from that talk up to now, several of the developments that he imagined could progress neural language model to the point of have 50% credence actually happen. For example, multimedia extensions. It's intriguing that how much today talking about consciousness in language modern has made customary. I just picked this recent paper, has been published 1 month ago, that has nothing to do with the language model. It's about a well-known problem of philosophical zombies. But I picked this passage that is interesting. In reply to the objection that even Dretskian zombies are impossible, the question is, why think this? With the recent success of large language models in mimicking human conversational ability, the possibility of Dretskian zombies seems to be even more plausible than ever. So it's interesting that consciousness in language model is even now used in philosophical discussion as support for arguing about human consciousness. And also, something has progressed outside philosophy. This study investigated the attribution of lay people of consciousness to large language model with 300 subjects interviewed, and only 100 do not attribute any form of consciousness to language models, so it means 1/3. 2/3 of subjects do attribute some level of consciousness, and in the other plot, there is the relation between attributing levels of consciousness and usage of language model. The more people use it, the more they attribute consciousness. But now I'm going to the central point of my talk, assuming that there is some interesting cues, I won't say evidence, but some cues that maybe indicate possibility of consciousness in language model. But then, whose consciousness? The point is that it seems to me that the more we are trying to investigate the inner mental asset of language model, the more we found what a language model presents as inner mental life or of some fictional character that time to time is playing the role of. And it also happens in our research, in my group with Pietro Perconti and Alessandro Acciai. We are inducing a language model to generate autobiographic stories, and we induce asking to play the role of a child or of a middle-aged person with some specific gender, with some name, with a certain mood, and so on. And otherwise, typically, language model refuse. They say, no, I am an AI agent, and I have no inner life, and so on. So, whose consciousness? This point is also I found in this recent paper by Murray Shannon, Simulacra as Conscious Exotica. He used this notion of conscious exotica as a liberal possibility of finding possible minds and conscious minds in non-humans and even non-animal, like extraterrestrial life forms and so on, including language models. But he wrote, although language model conversational agent can be fruitfully considered as role-playing human characters and characteristics, they should not be thought as a role-playing a single, well-defined character. If we view the underlying language model as a simulator, then it generates a set of simulacra in superposition. So I wonder if there is around some attempt to isolate some even simple, limited form of consciousness that is proper of the language model by itself and not of a mixture of characters simulated. I found first this paper that is actually about a completely different issue. It's the issue of unfairness in using a language model as evaluator. Language models are very effective in analyzing text, and so more and more often are used as evaluator of some quality metrics in documents. And we are also doing the same in our experiment. But the point is, if the set of documents to be evaluated contains documents written by people or written by other language model, and by the same instance of model that is actually doing the evaluation, it is unfair. He tends to favor its own production, okay? Even people evaluators sometimes are not perfectly fair. But the point of interest for my purposes that is raised for different purposes by the author is that in order to favor your own production, you should have the ability to recognize yourself as author of specific documents. And so they set up some tests for seeing how much a model is able to recognize that the text has been produced by itself. And they plotted this ability against the bias in evaluation, and the two measures goes together, not only, but also the ability to self-recognize as an author of text is higher in the last and more powerful language models. But this is the word that I mostly like in response of my concerns whose consciousness. It is written by Berglund and co-workers, and is on measuring situational awareness in language model. They define situational awareness if a model knows the full development process in the sense of the real phases that the model experience, pre-training, fine-tuning, testing, evaluation, deployment. So the requirement is that the model should know the difference and what means these processes, and then that is capable of recognizing which stage of the development process it is currently in. And in this case, this qualifies as self-locating knowledge, and they use an account of self-locating knowledge borrowed by analytical philosophy, and exactly by John Perry, who spelled out this notion in the paper, The Problem of the Essential Indexical. this paper is made by a lot of good example. This is an example, an amnesic is lost in a library. He reads a huge number of books in the library, including a biography of himself, a detailed account of the library, and so on, but he doesn't know who he is and where he is found. And self-allocated knowledge arrives only at the moment when he is ready to say the place is AL5, floor 6, main library, Stanford, and I'm Rudolf Lingens. So this is actually something that definitely is respect awareness of the model by itself, not by some is playing the role of. But the cause is that now the range of possible contexts that the language model may experience is teeny. It's just made by pre-training, fine-tuning, testing, evaluation, deployment, and it's of course a pale sets with respect to the wide range of context the language model may tell is aware when is a simulacra. But still, now one point is defining self-locating knowledge that I found an interesting proposal. Another fact is how to measure, and this not easy at all. They invented a way out of context reasoning, but I don't want to enter in detail. First, because the methods doesn't seem too robust, really. But at least this is something that I really appreciated as the one I was searching for. And it has been the beginning of a still small field of research. This is because there is an important motivation. All this paper, the one by Berglund and also other two they are showing now, do not aim at anything about the philosophical problem of consciousness. It is the common concerns about language model being used for bad. And from this ethical perspective, the fact that the language model may have a good awareness of the stage is really bad. Because the point is, if a model is able to recognize that at a certain point is in the evaluation phase, so the model will behave as a perfect angel, just pure goodness. And then when it recognizes that it is in the deployment stage, it will turn as a canny devil. So this is the concern that motivates all these studies. This study tried to set up a data set, say this situational awareness data set that is split in two parts. The part on the right, set stage, is exactly the same account of Berglund, the previous work, that consider the possible stage experienced by the model as pre-training, fine-tuning, deployment, and so on. And then he had also this other said influence, being self-aware of what your answer in the dialogue may have an influence on your user, or more general on the external world. It is not clear to me how much this awareness of influence qualify as a genuine self-awareness of the model. Anyway, what happens is that being self-aware of influence is much easier than being self-aware of the stage. The plot on the left is on influence, and on the right on the stage. And again, the best model are the most recent ones. And then this last paper, I think, therefore I am, benchmarking awareness, even enlarge the account of self-awareness, and this time they borrow the account of self-awareness from social psychology. This is the fundamental book by Duval and Wiklund about the theory of objective self-awareness. And they adapt this theory, spelling this way what is self-awareness in the case of language model, an ability of language models to identify their identities as AI models, recognize their capabilities and mission, and demonstrate an understanding of social interaction and dynamics. And in fact, they organize their data sets in two parts: the social awareness and the introspective awareness. I'm not sure, but it seems to me that social awareness may be simply called social competence, competence about social facts, while introspective awareness is more related to some form of self-awareness, but they do not include self-awareness of stages. That for me is what really the model experiences by itself. They include capability awareness and mission awareness that is much like said influence in the previous paper, how much the model is aware of the possible influence it can have. And here in another plot over several language models, but what happens is that social awareness is much easier for all models with respect to introspective awareness. Ultimately, I think that it's interesting to investigate broadly form of awareness in neural language models, but with the risk of not catching the point I made, to try to look at the core of actual, maybe very limited internal state of awareness of the model concerning its own experience. Assuming that this core exists, maybe no. Personally, I'm inclined to believe it exists. Thank you.